Witches. So today we are going to address kind of a more serious topic-ish, I guess, but it's something that is really close to my heart and that I wanted to talk about. So today we're going to talk about being a pagan during Christmas, because I understand how traumatizing it can be to some people, especially if you have endured any sort of like religious abuse or religious trauma. The imagery, the purity culture that kind of goes along with it, going to church, all of that kind of stuff is really, really difficult to confront. I personally did not step foot into a church. I think the last time I went to church up until like relatively recently, like a year ago, was when I was 12 years old. So for a really, really long time, for like over 10 years, I hadn't stepped foot in a church for a religious service. Now, I lived in Europe, so I like toured a bunch of cathedrals and stuff, but I feel like that's a little bit different. It's like not quite the religious thing. But even that was kind of hard for me. One of the things that I've been asked about a lot, I guess, or a lot of people have been coming to me about recently, is that their family is still expecting them to go to church, even though they're pagan, or their family may not know, but there's still that expectation that you must go to like a Christmas Eve mass or some sort of Christmas service, which can be incredibly traumatizing to people, and I want to recognize that because it is. So the biggest thing that helped me, and I don't know if this is gonna work for everybody, so I'm even hesitant to give this advice, but I found that like removing myself from the situation and looking at things from a viewpoint of appreciation of like another culture really helped me. So it took a lot of work for me and a lot of time for me to kind of get over that trauma. So I understand where people are coming from, and this might sound easier said than done. But I find that like by like, again, removing myself and like reorganizing the way I approach church and Christianity and the ritual of it all, when I see it as not something that is my faith and as something that I am participating in for somebody else, it makes it easier for me to go to, a little bit more palatable, and it's something that, it's only like an hour or two, unless it's like, I guess, a Catholic mass, which is like very long, I think, and what if you can just endure it knowing that this does not apply to you necessarily, I find that makes things easier. Another piece of advice I have is to try to find the pagan elements of Yule in Christmas. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in the next two videos. But I find that, when I was in church, I wasn't really listening to what was going on. I was looking around and being like, okay, paganism, great. Okay, so we are on the same page. Excellent. So that also really helped me like contextualize things and put things into perspective for myself. But it is still something that is said like really, really frequently, and to the point that I almost feel like it has been removed from the original religious context. So for me, this doesn't really bother me. I usually just say like, oh, Merry Christmas back, believe in Christ, or even that December 25th was his actual birthday. I've kind of just normalized saying like happy holidays to people, and at this point I think enough people know I'm a witch to say happy holidays to me, but whenever anyone says Merry Christmas to me or to you guys, I just hope that you can understand it's probably coming from a really good place, like unless it's obviously shitty, but I've never seen anyone be like, oh, Merry Christmas. So I hope that, understanding that that person's probably coming from a really good place and is legitimately just like saying like, have a happy holidays, but in their own way, that kind of like understanding that and recontextualizing that also really helped me to be less like offended over someone saying Merry Christmas to me, because they may not know you're a pagan, and they may not actually mean it in a way of like, I'm trying to convert you by saying Merry Christmas. They probably just mean like Merry Christmas or like Happy Holidays, whatever. So yes, just something to think about, something to put into context for you guys, I hope. So the next bullet point on my list is to educate yourself on the pagan origins of Christmas, and do with that information what you will. Personally, I used to like get really, really combative with my family when they would like come at me about Christmas and stuff. I'd be like, well, don't you know, like it's actually from Yule, like you're thieves, like, well, but like I'm tired, so I don't really do that anymore. It's more just like a reminder for me, like I said, when we were talking about like finding the pagan elements of Yule in like the church and stuff, or the pagan elements of Yule in Christmas when you're in the church. I find that if you do have a combative relative, having that information is a great, strong shield and weapon kind of against their argument, because it's literally fact. having that information on hand is great, and it's awesome when you have combative family members who are just like not accepting, which unfortunately is a reality for a lot of pagans. And if that is your reality, I'm so sorry. Know that this is a safe space to be a pagan, obviously, and if you ever want to talk, I am open to talking about it with you. But by educating yourself and knowing things, not only can you validate your own beliefs, I feel, but you can also kind of stand up for yourself in situations where you may not have been able to had you not had all of that information. So I hope that is helpful. And again, we're gonna go over some of that, more of that stuff in the next 2 videos. So yes. Okay, so the next bullet point on my list of things that one can do to help being pagan during Christmas time is to find some relaxing or grounding exercises, crystals, herbal teas, etc., and just like engage in witchcraft that way. It's very low energy, and it's also kind of a touch point for witches who might feel a little bit like they are unable to practice witchcraft openly, especially if they are living at home with parents or going back home to visit parents. So this is something that one can do, because like no one's gonna be like checking your pockets, I feel like, for extra crystals and stuff. And teas, you can be like, oh well, I'm just drinking tea over coffee these days, or I've just taken up meditation. Most people aren't gonna question it, likely, so it's just a suggestion, just finding simple magics to incorporate into your practice. And finally, the last thing I recommend is to rest and not take things too seriously. Now, again, I understand that people have family members who do not like that they are pagan and are very openly and vocally against it. So I don't want you to put yourself into any danger by doing any of this stuff. In Christian ritual, if you need to participate in going to church services, etc., it doesn't make you any less of a pagan just because you're going. If you're worried that going to church or participating in church services is going to cause your gods to turn their backs on you or makes you any less of a witch, I invite you to remember that Christian witches are a thing. Your faith is your own, and if you're not believing the things you're saying, if you're just kind of like there in a church, you know what I mean, and not actively like necessarily participating, or don't truly believe what is happening or like what you are doing to participate in that ritual, it's not one of those things that your gods, your deities will know, your ancestors will know. If you are a pagan who is maybe not so enthusiastically engaging and participating in some Christian traditions, don't worry about it. It's only one day of the year. You will last for 12, so you have a couple of the other days to practice. I hope that you can find peace and it's not too stressful. So again, if you ever need to talk about anything, I am always, my DMs are always open, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.